Welcome in, belly up, have a seat and grab a drink as we talk some Wingman Fantasy Football. Welcome into another edition of Wingman Fantasy Football, the League Podcast. I'm your host, Michael Furley, and as always, I'd like to thank all of you, or any of you who may be watching or listening to today's show. This is episode 110, Week 7 Rewind, and we will start off the show with some player news today. We'll go over the Mecha Studs for Week 7. We'll also recap week number 7 of the Wingman Fantasy Football League. We'll check in on our updated standings, take a gander at our Gooseometer, and strap in for a Mike rant. And we'll also take a glance at some waiver wire targets. We'll also evaluate our starts of the week from the previous week. But before we do any of that, let's make sure that everybody is in the room.
Wingmen assemble!
All right, I want to let you guys know, of course, you've noticed that we are not in our normal setting today with that beer tent outside. Most of my studio's outside, so we're bringing this inside to the real bar room tonight. And of course, we are without Bernie tonight as we're recording this in the wee hours of the morning, so we're going to give him a night off this time around. But in terms of the Week 7 rewind, man, the theme for Week 7 was major injuries and gooses galore. All right, guys, let's take a look at some player news. And like I said, it's injuries. So let's start off and let's get through these as fast as we can. Starting off with Deshaun Watson suffered a torn Achilles tendon and he will now be out for the year. And Brandon Ayuk tore his ACL and he will now be out for the remainder of the season. Chris Godwin suffered a dislocated ankle, ending his 2024 regular season, although there is a chance he might be able to return for the NFL postseason, but his fantasy season is done. Andy Dalton was in a car accident on Tuesday with his family, and there are not many details except that he and his family did not need any transport via emergency vehicle, and they were able to walk away. Chris Olave is still in the concussion protocol, and we'll have to see how he progresses throughout the week to see if he can make it back for Week 8. Juju Smith-Schuster aggravated his hamstring injury early in the game on Sunday and was unable to return, and it looks like he may miss Week 8 as well, if not even more time. As far as other hamstrings, Mike Evans also aggravated his hamstring injury and is expected to miss at least 3 weeks. Quarterback for the Raiders, Aiden O'Connell, broke the thumb on his throwing hand, and he will be placed on injured reserve, making way for Gardner Minshew, the mustache, to return to the starting lineup for the Raiders. Jameson Williams has been suspended for 2 games for violating the NFL's performance-enhancing substances policy. And Deebo Samuel was hospitalized with pneumonia, but he has since been released, although his status for Week 8 is unclear. Jaden Daniels, superstar rookie quarterback for the Commanders, left Sunday's game early with rib injury, and there's a chance that he might miss the Sunday night matchup against the number 1 quarterback taken in this past draft, Caleb Williams and the Bears. Now for some better news. Nick Chubb made his return to the field in Week 7, and he was able to score a touchdown. Cooper Kupp practiced in full on Tuesday ahead of the Rams game on Thursday night. However, there are now rumors floating around that the wide receiver of the Rams might be on the trade block. And Puka Nacua has now been designated to return as the sophomore receiver had his 21-day window to return opened, and he may even make the return in time for this Thursday's game. And Tua Tagovailoa is expected to return to practice sometime this week with the intention to return to the starting lineup this week against the Cardinals. And Jameis Winston is now expected to get the start for the Browns with the season-ending injury to Deshaun Watson. And Alvin Kamara has agreed to a 2-year contract extension to stay with the Saints. Now it is time to get into our Mecha Studs for Week 7.
Mecha Studs.
All right, our highest scoring player of the week this week was Lamar Jackson with 36.44 points as he threw for 281 passing yards, threw for 5 passing touchdowns, and rushed for 52 yards. And in that same game on Monday night, Baker Mayfield was the second highest scoring player of the week at 31 points, as he was able to tabulate 370 passing yards with 3 passing touchdowns and 22 rushing yards. Jahmyr Gibbs got 30 points for the Lions as he had 160 total yards, including 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And Rachaad White, mostly in the second half in comeback mode, was able to get 26.1 points as he totaled 111 yards with 6 receptions and 2 touchdowns. And Saquon Barkley put it on his old team as he scored 25.7 points as he got 187 total yards with 2 receptions and a touchdown. And Joe Mixon in every game but one that he has started has scored over 25 points, including in Week 7 where he had 25.4 points as he had 124 total yards with 2 receptions and 2 touchdowns. Derrick Henry got off to a slow start but finished in blazing fashion as he had 24.7 points as he had 182 total yards. He had 1 reception for the 1 touchdown. And Javonte Williams, in a surprise outing on Thursday night, had 24.6 points with 111 total yards, 3 receptions, and he scored his first touchdown of the season and then added his second touchdown later in that same game. So he finished with 2 touchdowns on Thursday night. And we have a kicker who made this list as Cam Dicker of the Chargers had 21 points with 5 field goals, 2 of which were longer than 50 yards. All right, guys, it is now time to look back as we get into the Week 7 Rewind.
Let's go back. Week 7 Rewind.
All right, we're going to start off with our first game. We had our lowest scoring team of the entire season up against the highest scoring team of the entire season, as Michael's Amazin Spidey entered this game at 3-3, was up against Paul's Q-Bert Rage, who entered this week at 5-1. And I have to say, we had a major upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Amazin Spidey was able to take this one down 88 points even to 75.54 points. This is now 4 wins in a row for Amazin Spidey. And this snaps the 3-game winning streak of Q-Bert's Rage. All right, let's see what players helped Amazin Spidey get this victory, as Kyler Murray had 22.2 points and the great Bijan Robinson.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
Had 21.8 points, and he's heating up.
He's heating up.
And Josh Jacobs collected his very first receiving touchdown in his entire career as he was able to get 17.7 points to chip in. But it was not all roses, as Amazin Spidey had a couple of duds, including Calvin Ridley at 5.7 points and Travis Kelce at 3.7 points. For Calvin Ridley, this is his 4th game in a row in the dud column and 5 out of 6 games this season. As for players on the bench that would have helped Amazin Spidey out quite a bit, Javonte Williams had 24.6 points on the bench. And don't look now, but Mark Andrews had 18.1 points on the bench.
He's heating up.
All right, let's look at the strong players for Q-Bert's Rage. As Justin Jefferson keeps chugging along, he's not quite on a roll here because he had 1 game of like 12.5 points, but he's been over 12.5 points in every game this year. He had 17.9 points in this one, and T. Higgins added 16.2 points. And don't look now, but Kaimi Fairbairn got 12 points for a Fairbairn stare, and he is on fire.
He's on fire.
Unfortunately, he had some duds, and these hurt bad as this game was pretty close all the way to the end, as Jaden Daniels had to leave the game early with a rib injury, and he can only get 5.24 points. And with the Cooper Kupp being a late scratch, he put in the replacement Josh Whittington, and he got 0 points. There was one player on his bench who had a good day. I don't know if it would have been enough to help out, but Ray Davis got 11.2 points.
He's heating up.
Now for the injuries. Q-Bert Rage had 2 injuries this week as Chris Godwin left the game at the very end with a dislocated ankle, and Jaden Daniels left the game early with the rib injuries.
Oh, no.
All right, on to our next game. We have Ben's brilliant team up against the struggling The Fantastics. And surprisingly or not, the Fantastics was actually favored in this game by 20 points via the projection. And once again, we had an upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Ben's brilliant team took this one down 78.88 to 50.24. Unfortunately for the Fantastics, this is now 6 losses in a row.
You're as cold as ice.
And with the 50.24 points for the this week, that was the lowest score of the week and the lowest score of the season. All right, now let's look at the top performers for Ben's brilliant team, as he had Tank Bigsby.
Once it hits your lips, it's so good.
Tank Bigsby had 23.8 points, and Brock Purdy had 23.18 points.
He's heating up.
And don't look now, but George Kittle has been the model of consistency. He is chugging along once again on those train tracks, getting 12.1 points. As for some duds for Ben's brilliant team, he had Gabe Davis in his lineup, and he could only score 1.8 points. And Christian Watson only had 1.4 points. Although he did have a couple players on his bench that could have made his score a little better, as Keon Coleman, the rookie for the Bills, had 14.5 points. And the Cincinnati defense, the one defense we said last week was worth streaming, had 12 points, and that's their second straight double-digit scoring game.
He's heating up.
All right, now to the Fantastics. His top scorer list is short, as Austin Saber, his kicker, had 17 points. Surprisingly enough, he is chugging along as he has had 4 straight games with double-digit scores. And the reason you get the lowest score of the season is you have plenty of big-time duds, including C.J. Stroud could only get 5.34 points. Tyreek Hill, oh my gosh, my start of the week only got 1.8 points. And Deebo Samuel left the game early with a sickness and illness, and he had 0 points. Amari Cooper in his debut for the Bills had a strong game, but he was on the bench for the Fantastics, as Amari Cooper had 14.6 points on the bench. And in terms of injuries, Ken's Fantastics did have Deebo Samuel leave with an illness. He had since been hospitalized with pneumonia. He's now been released, but we're not sure about his upcoming status for Week 8.
Oh, no.
On to our next game on the docket here. We have Corey's Mac Daddy 2s, who came in this week at 5-1, up against Nick's Waddle Away, who was at 3-3. And this one was a blowout, as Corey's Mac Daddy 2s won this one 97.14 to 65.96. This was the biggest blowout of the week, of a win of over 31 points.
You got knocked the fuck out, man.
This is now 3 wins in a row for Corey's Mac Daddy 2s. So after this outcome here, we have Corey's Mac Daddy 2s has improved to 6-1, while Waddle Away has fallen to 3-4. All right, let's see what players helped Mac Daddy 2s get to this one, as once again, he has so many players on his top performers list, including Breece Hall, a.k.a. Breece Lightning, had 23.1 points for his second straight quality start.
He's heating up.
And he picked up a quarterback to stream, as Drake May
will cross the streams.
Excuse me, Egon. You said crossing the streams was bad.
May I say Draco Mofo had 20.84 points, and he is heating up.
He's heating up.
And Kyren Williams
Release the Kraken.
keeps chugging along as he had 19.6 points. And Aaron Jones has been dealing with that hip injury, but he showed up this week and showed out as he had 19.1 points. And the LA Ram defense had 12 points. But he did have a couple duds on this outcome as Devontae Smith had 0.5 points for the virtual Goose. And Tank Dell had the full Goose at 0.0 points. He could have had a couple more points as even though LA Rams scored 12 points in his starting lineup, he had the Denver defense on his bench who had 14 points. Corey's Mac Daddy 2s made it through the week without any major injuries. Now to Nick's waddle away as Joe Mixon is just a stud, a man amongst boys, had 25.4 points.
He's heating up.
And Jamar Chase, the ex-teammate of Mixon, had 15.1 points. Now his dud list for waddle away is very long as well, as Devontae Adams in his New York Jets debut could only get 4.5 points. And Sam Laporta hasn't quite figured it out yet as he only got 3 points. And Deontay Johnson is slowing down now at 2.2 points. And he kept in a kicker who was cut. We even said in the news last week that they picked up, the Green Bay Packers picked up McManus. Don't look him up. And they cut Braylon Narvison, who had 0.0 points as he's not even in the league. And that is the most embarrassing of Gooses. He did have one strong player on his bench, but it would not have been enough as the Minnesota defense had 11 points.
He's heating up.
All right, on to our next game on the docket. We have Alex's They Took Our Jobs up against Andrew's Crazy Fish. They Took Our Jobs came into this one at 4-2. However, they were on a 2-game losing streak. And Crazy Fish came to this one at 3-3, also on a 2-game losing streak. But Alex's They Took Our Jobs took this one down as he had 111 points, 0.52 to 83.04 points. This snaps the 2-game losing streak for They Took Our Jobs, but it increases the 2-game losing streak now to a 3-game losing streak for Crazy Fish.
You're as cold as ice.
All right, let's look at the top performers for They Took Our Jobs as once again, his 1-2 turn running backs of Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry top off the list here. Saquon had 25.7 points and Derrick Henry keeps chugging along. He is the biggest of trains. He's the freight train as he had 24.7 points, most of which came in the second half. And Josh Allen is finally getting on track here as he had 21.02 points for his second consecutive game on the top performer list.
He's heating up.
And DK Metcalf had 17.9 points, and James Sweetfeet Connor had 16.2 points. It wasn't all roses here as Jaden Reed for the Green Bay Packers could only get 2 points in his starting lineup, while his teammate Romeo Doubs had 13.4 points on the bench.
He's heating up.
In terms of injuries for They Took Our Jobs, DK Metcalf is now dealing with a grade 1 MCL sprain, and his week-to-week status is uncertain at this time.
Oh no!
Now to Crazy Fish. Let's see what helped him get to his score, even though it wasn't enough to win, as Amon-Ra St. Brown, the Sun God, had 21.1 points, and Cameron Dicker, the kicker for the Chargers, was a Mecha Stud at 21 points.
He's heating up.
And Chuba Hubbard, his train is slowing down, but he keeps it rolling as he had 11.2 points. Now for the duds, and he had a few here as he had Marvin Harrison Jr. could only get 3.6 points. Ramondre Stevenson could only get 3.5 points. And Brandon Ayuk got only 3.3 points as he left the game early with that major knee injury. As for players on his bench, that could have helped. There were some good scores here. I don't think he would have caught up here as George Pickens, his newly acquired player, after Team Beat Spite dropped him, had 19.6 points in his first game with new quarterback Russell Wilson. And Alexander Madison surprisingly is having a very solid season as he had 13.8 points. And as I mentioned before, injuries for Crazy Fish was Brandon Ayuk, who sustained an ACL tear, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season.
Oh Oh
All right, on to our next game. This was our closest game of the week as we had Bernie's Team B
Cuban B. Yes, Cuban B.
up against Katie's King George. Team B came into this one at 3-3, while King George came into this one at 2-4. And Bernie's Team B took this one down 92.38 to 87.1. And this was just over a 5-point differential. And this was coming down to Monday night as Bernie's Team B's points were locked in by the Monday night games. But Katie's King George had Mike Evans and Justin Tucker, and she needed what'd she get? She got 22 from those guys, and she would have needed 27 plus. And the bad thing was here, Mike Evans left the game early in the second quarter, and that really put a damper on her chances to come back. Now for Team B, what players helped him get to this fine score and the victory? Kenneth Walker, Texas Ranger, had 22.3 points.
He's heating up.
And A.J. Brown has been a superstar in every game he's played this year as he had 17.4 points.
He's on fire.
And Will Reichert, the kicker he picked up last week, has had back-to-back games with over 14 points as he had 15 points in this week.
He's heating up.
And the Washington defense is starting to show up as they had 14 points. So his special teams definitely carried the day. Now for his duds, he had Alvin Kamara get 5.4 points, and Jamison Williams could only get 0.5 points for the virtual Goose. And Juju Smith-Schuster, start of the week for Team B, had 0.0 points as he left the game early with an aggravating hamstring injury. He did have one player on his bench that would have outperformed a starter, but not by much. The Philadelphia defense had 16 points on his bench, so both of his defense on his team had 14 and 16 points. And for the injuries, Juju Smith-Schuster, his start of the week, left the game with a hamstring injury, and now we're thinking he's going to miss at least 1 to 2 more games.
Oh no!
On to Katie's King George. I really thought she was going to come back in this one. That Mike Evans injury was a killer, and she had several players who had fine days for her, as Jordan Love, all you need is Jordan Love, had 20.8 points.
He's heating up.
Bucky Irving, the gas station man, had 15.2 points.
He's heating up.
Brian Robinson Jr., start of the week, had a very solid day at 13.1 points.
He's heating up.
And Justin Tucker, she picked up this kicker for free on the waiver wire, or maybe for $1. He's been a stud ever since she picked him up. He had 13 points for the third consecutive game.
He's on fire.
Her only dud this week was Zay Flowers, as he wilted with only 3.5 points. There was no one on her bench who could have made her score any better, and she did have the one bad injury of Mike Evans, who left the game with a hamstring and is looking like he's going to miss at least 3 games.
Oh no!
All right, on to our next game, our last game on the docket. We have Reggie's Lionized at 0-6 up against Jimerson's R3dSox Nation at 4-3. These two teams had our longest losing streak and our longest winning streak, as Reggie's Lionized has lost 6 in a row, while R3dSox Nation was on a 4-game winning streak, I believe. Anyway, but this one was a huge upset.
Average Joe's wins in a shocking upset.
I feel shocked.
Reggie's Lionized took this one down 130.24 to 108.1. Reggie's Lionized was the highest scoring team of the week. This snaps his 6-game losing streak. And unfortunately for R3dSox Nation, he was the highest scoring loser of the week.
It's all there, black and white, clear as crystal. You get nothing. You lose. Good day, sir.
All right, top performers for Reggie's Lionized. He had 2 Mecha Studs, as Lamar Jackson was the highest scoring player of the week at 36.44 points. And Jahmyr Gibbs got a little more run with David Montgomery being banged up for a little bit of the game, as he had 30 points. And Brock Bowers, nice pickup, had 14.3 points.
He's on fire.
Lionized had 0 duds on his team, and he even had a ton of players on his bench who performed well. He could have played almost any combination of players, and he was going to get his first win of the season, as Rashad White was on his bench with 26.1 points. Brian Thomas Jr. for the Jaguars had 19.6. And Najee Harris has been a superstar ever since he's been benched by Lionized. For the second straight week, he had 16.2 points.
He's heating up.
Now for R3dSox Nation, who had a fine score, but just went up against the highest scoring team this week. Let's see what players helped him get that nice score of 108 plus points. As Baker Mayfield keeps it going, as he's been the best quarterback in the league next to Lamar Jackson. He had 31 points. And Kareem Hunt has been scoring touchdowns left and right since rejoining the Kansas City Chiefs, as he he scored 21.3 points.
He's heating up.
And Drake London's been very consistent, even though Kirk Cousins hasn't been, as he had 15.3 points.
He's on fire.
And Chris Boswell, the kicker for the Steelers, had 14 points.
He's heating up.
You did have a couple of duds, however, a pair of receivers. I know what this feels like. Malik Neighbors had only 6.8 points, and Stephon Diggs had 4.8 points. And Jalen Hurts is coming back around, as he had 22.76 points.
He's heating up.
Before we get any further along here, I want to give a huge round of applause to Mr. Lionized for getting his first victory. And a monster congratulations. All right. Congratulations, Lionized. I know it's a little late in the season here, but it's got to feel good to get off the schneid here. All right, guys. With that being said, now let's take a look at our updated standings. All right, I got a very small screen here, so it's hard to tell here, but we have Mac Daddy 2's at the top of the list all by himself. He's the only one at 6-1, as we have two teams at 5-2. If I'm not mistaken, we have They Took Our Jobs and we have Q-Bert's Rage, who are just separated by 1 point as the overall point leader. Next off, we have a couple. Let's see. We have a 4-3 team at. We have a bunch of 4-3 teams tied for these next 4 spots. As we have like I said, it's very hard for me to see. I got very small here. But we have R3dSox Nation in 6th place. Amazin Spidey's moved up to 7th, and a combination of Ben's Brilliant Team and Team B in 4th and 5th. Congratulations, you guys. Everyone is still in it. Even Lionized is only, 3 games back of 4th place. So you got a chance here, man. You're playing everyone in front of you. You can knock these guys back as you move yourself forward. All right, now it is time to take a gander at our Goose-o-meter.
I'm just goosing along.
All right, guys, we had 5 gooses this week added to the meter. And the Goose-o-meter is broken. We are up to 14 gooses. We've broken the meter. We have Ben's Brilliant Team now has 3, as does Waddle Away. Team B has 2. And then we have, we have They Took Our Jobs with 1. Amazin Spidey with 1. Crazy Fish with 1. The Fantastics with 1. I'm missing somebody here. Again, these are very small. I can't read these right here. And Mac Daddy 2's had 1 as well, as Tank Dell added to the list. So an awful, awful day, as we had 5 gooses. I can't believe we had that many gooses this week. All right. All right, guys. It is now time for a mic rant.
Baby rant. Karen rant. Monty. I don't care whose fault it is. I'm going to tell you exactly what I think. Mike rant. Let's go back.
All right, excuse the push of the button there. All right, in this week's mic rant, we are going to talk about the Miami Dolphins. They came off the bye. They were playing against an awful defensive team in the Indianapolis Colts, and they went up against Anthony Richardson, who could only complete 3 of 16 at halftime for passing. It was just horrendous, and they still couldn't get this one down. Huntley left the game early with an injury, but even then, Tyreek Hill didn't get his first catch till late in the fourth quarter. What are we doing? I thought that Mike McDaniel was a guru. Maybe he is just a little bit outmatched here and overwhelmed, but maybe with Tua returning, he might be saved, and that'll just show that the money that they spent on Tua, if they can turn the season around, would be worth it. Maybe Tua is as good as everyone thinks he's not, because once he leaves, they lose, and they win almost every game he starts. Miami Dolphins, wake up. This is your last chance to get this back. Luckily, your division is not so good, although the Buffalo Bills are catching up. I'm a little tired tonight, guys, so my rant is a little lackluster. I admit it, but I just want to say, Dolphins, wake up and fix yourself. My gosh. All right, guys, now let's look at some waiver wire targets here. Our running back position is very weak this time. So pretty much what we're looking at is it's time to start looking up, either letting things go or starting to shore up your backfield by picking up some of your handcuffs. I know Crazy Fish is hoarding a lot of the handcuffs here, but like Jaylen Warren, for example, is out there, and Braylon Allen, I believe, is still out there. Those are the only two guys, and a Blake Corum. Just people like that, like just handcuffs to these really good running backs are the only guys that have any value. I wouldn't spend any money on them unless they're your particular handcuff. And even then, I would put a very small bid, if any at all. Now to our wide receivers and tight ends. Evan Ingram is still out there, and he is a favorite target and a possession receiver for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we know their defense is not very good, so they're going to have to be playing catch-up ball quite a bit. With the injury to Brandon Ayuk, rookie Ricky Pearsall was on the field, made his debut this week, and it looks like he may be getting a lot more action, so keep that one in mind. Cole Kmet now coming off the bye for the Bears. His last game was a monster. I don't know if he can keep it up here, but just keep in mind he was a superstar stud in the last game the Bears did play. And they're playing against the Commanders, whose defense is definitely getting better, but they have been giving up big games to wide receivers and quarterbacks overall. Now, David Njoku is still out there, and with Amari Cooper leaving, and now Jameis Winston being expecting to start, he's their best receiver on their team. You have a young player in Cedric Tillman, I believe, and Jerry Jeudy, who just underperforms year after year after year. We know Njoku can take over. We saw it last year, and with a free throwing player like Winston, he might be someone who's going to be a big time target receiver. Also, with Mike Evans being out for the next 3 weeks, and with Chris Godwin being out for the regular season, rookie Jalen McMillan has been up and down a little bit, but he might take that slot receiver role for the Tampa Bay Bucks, which has been a money position this year in terms of fantasy points. All right, let's move along to our quarterback waiver wire targets. Russell Wilson had a great fantasy day, maybe not a great NFL day, but he definitely the offense overall improved, and George Pickens finally got some work with Russell Wilson. He's out there. Matthew Stafford was our start of the week this past week. Did not perform, but he's getting his receivers back as both Cooper Kupp and Puka Nacua are practicing this week. We'll see if they end up playing this week on a Thursday night short week, but his receivers are coming back. Andy Dalton is still out there. Like I said, he had that accident, so he's been going kind of slowing down a little bit lately. So it's kind of a shot in the dark, and I think they're playing against Denver. So actually, I wouldn't even consider picking up Andy Dalton this particular week. But Marcus Mariota came in for relief for Jaden Daniels and had a stud of a day from the backup spot. And they've got a Sunday night game. It's hard to put your trust in him, but Marcus Mariota might get a marquee start. Now for defenses, once again, there's not too many superstar defenses, but we have the Atlanta Falcons up against Tampa Bay, and we're going to see how Baker Mayfield handles not having his two superstar receivers. He's been in his career prone for mistakes, and he might revert to that type of play. So Atlanta Falcons are the only streaming defense that I have here on my list. All right, guys, we're going to review our starts of the week last week, and once again, it was not good, and I apologize for that. We're going to start off here. We came into last week at 15-15 as a show. I was 8-7 through those first 6 weeks, and Bernie was we only did 5 weeks, so we didn't do week 1. And Bernie was 7-8. And after this week, well, Bernie's picks were Aaron Rodgers, Tyler Algier, and Juju Smith-Schuster. We're going to be very generous with what we call successes here, as Aaron Rodgers was projected for 17.3 points. He scored 17. We're going to call that a win since he was still a streamable quarterback with 17 points, but that's being very generous. Tyler Algier, on the other hand, was projected for 7 points. He's been doing better than that, but this time he could only get 5 points. And Juju Smith-Schuster, you never pick your own players for starts of the week. I learned that after week 2 or 3. But he picked Juju Smith-Schuster, a player he was excited to play, who's projected for 7.5 points. And unfortunately, he aggravated a hamstring injury, left the game early, and got the Goose at 0 points. So Bernie this week was 1-2 on his starts of the week. Now for me, it wasn't much better. Not making fun here. Actually, it was probably worse, as I picked Matt Stafford to outperform or at least equal his projection at 17.4. And he only got 6.1 points as the Rams defense was dominating, shutting down the opponent, getting touchdowns of their own and short fields, leaving Kyron Williams the only one to get any offensive points. As for the running back that I chose from last week, Brian Robinson scored 13.1 points against his 12.9 projected. Like I said, we're going to take what we can get. That is a starting quality running back there. He did outperform his projection, albeit barely. So we're going to take that as a success. And Tyreek Hill, this was a mess and part of the rant. Like I said, if I had more energy, I would have gotten into this a little bit more. But Tyreek Hill was projected for 11.5 points, a low projection for such a superstar player, and he couldn't even muster that as he only got 1.8 points, didn't get his first catch until late in the fourth quarter. A horrendous day. Is this going to be a bust of a year all year long, or can Tua save the season for Tyreek Hill? All right, after both Bernie and I going 1-2 this week, our show as a total for starts of the week is down to 17 and 19. I apologize to you guys. And overall, though, I am 9-9, and Bernie is 8-10. All right, guys, we're gonna have a little shorter show tonight here, as I didn't get a chance to get my studio back up and running and by myself here. I'm running out of breath here. I miss Bernie. I miss you, Bernie. We'll see you next time, though, when he comes around for our Week 8 preview. But with that being said, guys, you can find all of our podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, TuneIn Radio, YouTube Music, and Amazon Music. Just search Wingman the League on those platforms. Leave a 5-star review. Go ahead and do it. I dare you. And if you want to find all of our content, be it audio or video feeds, you can go to wingmanentertainment.net/podcast. And of course, please check out our YouTube channel at wingmanfantasyfootball.com/YouTube. Our last video is not in our video section of our page. It's on the streaming or live section of the page. It is on our main YouTube channel page. Just look down to the other bar there. Our Oktoberfest special is in the live tab. I may try and re-record it and put it in with the recording, with the recorded videos, but just keep in mind there is a video up there. I don't think I'm going to do it as a podcast because the sound wasn't great. When you can see us, you can tell what we're saying, but just to hear it with a little bit of double speak might be a little irritating to listen to without the visuals. So once again, I want to thank you all so very much. If you go to that YouTube channel, go ahead and hit that like button, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave a comment, and we'll get you into our next mailbag segment in our Week 8 preview, guys. Thank you so very much. I appreciate you stopping by. And with that being said, may your glasses be full, your mugs stay frosty, and we will see you next time.